Paul, thanks for coming on Spotlight with me today. It's Paul Hodgetts from Quintadena. Over to you, Paul. Tell us all about your business, and great to have you here.
Okay, well, thanks, Andy. It's lovely to be here. So we started in 2005 to create a business that was going to be a solutions partner for quotation software. It's kind of a niche environment, but my business partner had been working in a company where they were making quotation software in one particular industry. He'd got the insight that businesses tend to do quoting in quite an ad hoc way. So it's this little dark art that sits somewhere between CRM. Some CRM packages do quoting, but not very well. Accounting packages, if you've ever tried to quote out of Sage, for example, I don't know whether I can mention an actual product name. Maybe I shouldn't.
We'll bleep it out. Don't worry.
Bleep it out. Okay. So that you can do it, but it's painful. And if you want to do something slightly off-piste for a particular requirement, that's quite difficult. So quoting tends to be this fairly manual process, which a lot of reinventing of the wheel, a lot of involving of relatively senior staff to check stuff because you can't build rules into the system. A lot of errors. We quite often talk to people and they're looking at the value of what we're providing, and in some cases the sheer value of avoiding making those mistakes outweighs the implementation investment. Sometimes dramatically. Sometimes we'll talk to people who say, yeah, we ended up quoting, we forgot X on the quote, so we had to take the hit, and the value of that hit was more than we were asking them to spend, and that was one instance. So quoting's a really important part of the business process, but in a lot of businesses it isn't done with the level of rigor that businesses will manage their customer base, will manage their invoicing, etc. So I was finishing an MBA, and we chatted and said, well, maybe there's a business opportunity there. Nobody else really seems to be doing this very much. We found a product called QuoteWorks, which ticked all of our boxes. It's an American product. Had got some representation over here, but mostly through companies that were really a CRM reseller, and then they'd sell you a license of QuoteWorks to go alongside it. There wasn't really anybody who was doing nothing but QuoteWorks. So we phoned them up and said we'd like to be a reseller, and they said that's great. What's your actual business? And we said we're going to sell you a product, and they were like, ooh, nobody's thought of doing that before. So they hadn't really, I think, understood quite how much value there could be tailoring the product, customizing it. We can write bespoke add-ons, which we've done a lot of over the years. And so, yeah, they signed us up, we got going, and this was in 2005. 2007, we made it onto their worldwide top 10 list. 2006, we made it onto their worldwide top 10 list. And in every year from 2007, we've been their #1 worldwide solutions partner.
Brilliant. So they're fans of you being there. They know what your business is now.
They send us a bit of plastic about this tool every year with our name engraved on it.
Fantastic. So tell us, Paul, then, what would make you stand out from your competition?
Well, there are now other QuoteWorks solutions partners, and we are still in the UK. We're bigger than all of the others put together. We've got a factory too, so we can bring a scale of operations. We're still a small business by anybody's standards, but we have a permanently staffed help desk. So if you've got a problem with QuoteWorks, or if you just want to know how to do something, you've forgotten how to do it, you're not sure, do I do it this way, do I do it that way? Heaven forbid your server's blown up and you just reinstall it. These things happen in life. We've got a help desk with a couple of guys and a manager. there during all business hours, and we can add other staff into that, at a short notice if demand. So we've got scale. The number of person years, if we call it that, of experience that we've got between us over that time means that we have seen quite a lot of different businesses and quite a lot of different business problems, situations. We've got that number of years of applying QuoteWorks to so many different solutions. So we've got that scale. We've also got the experience that we can bring to, okay, this problem may be hurting you, but we've probably seen it in 6 different variations before we can bring you an answer.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Pretty clear. Thank you. So where's the business going? You've been around 15, 16, 17, a bit more actually, 80.
Yeah,
80.
Time.
Where does time go? What about the next 5 years? What does that hold for you, would you say?
More of the same, hopefully. We have been growing. We managed a 20% revenue growth over the past 12 months, which I was fairly pleased with, all things considered.
Yeah.
The move to the cloud is what's happening. All systems are moving to the cloud, and of course, COVID dramatically accelerated that, as suddenly the whole of UK industry needed to be able to work from home, which some of us are still doing. QuoteWorks has been working on its cloud offering for half a dozen years now, so it's harder to migrate an existing product into the cloud than it is to write a new one. And they were very clear from the beginning that they didn't want to create a kind of two-tier thing where all the good stuff is on the cloud and the desktop people just drift into oblivion. They've taken their desktop product and they've re-architected that product for the cloud. So it's taken longer, but the continuity between the cloud product and the desktop product is much greater than you find typically. We like to keep growing. We'd like to keep serving customers.
Great. Okay, cool. So what's the biggest learning, would you say, since you've been in business?
That's an interesting one, isn't it?
Oh.
Probably that it's okay to say no.
Go on.
It's okay to say, no, the product doesn't do that.
Yep.
It's okay to say, no, I can't do anything with the price. No, I can't deliver it by yesterday. Because if you say no, people know that when you say yes, you mean it. And it is, particularly when you're starting out, it's very difficult to say yes and then back at the office you think, right, how am I going to deliver that? And usually that's the right thing to do, actually, is to, I'm pretty sure we can do that, and then work out the details later. But sometimes you can't. And it is sometimes better to write off what looks like a good opportunity and walk away feeling, actually, not just the stress of having promised something you can't deliver, and if that sounds like I've done that, then I might once or twice have done that. But as you develop more long-term relationships with customers, which is what we all want to be able to do, if you have said no once or twice, then they'll know that when you say yes, it really does mean yes, and you gain a reputation for honesty and integrity that way. And that's, I think, probably the most unexpected thing, particularly when I've been working previously in other companies, and the answer was always, the answer's got to be yes, no matter what. And you can see why people want you to always say yes, but ultimately it's not. One of the great things about having your own business is that you can say, this is how I'm going to operate, and you've the responsibility for that decision, and you take the consequences.
Yeah.
But I've probably said probably regretted saying yes more often than I've regretted saying no.
Interesting. I think there are quite a number of people that could both empathise and learn from that one. So yes, great point. Thank you. What's been the biggest challenge in your time in business? What's the biggest obstacle you've had to overcome, would you say?
Communicating what quotation software is for, probably. It's recently grown its own 3-letter acronym as CPQ, Configure Price Quote, which nobody's ever heard of, but that's what we're supposed to call it apparently in the industry. People come to me with a big pain point in their business. They're either making mistakes that they're not aware of, or it's taking forever to quote. I have reduced quoting the time it takes to raise a quote from days to minutes. Not often. It's usually less dramatic than that, but it can be as dramatic as that. So businesses that identify they've got pain, if our web marketing and all that kind of stuff is doing its job, then they'll come. Then they'll find us. If I go to like a business breakfast or something and say we provide quotation solutions, I haven't yet cracked the people just like, well, why would I want one of those? I haven't yet cracked that elevator pitch, whatever you want to call it, that says, because if you're running a business, then by definition you are successfully raising quotes and sending them out to customers. It may be taking you longer than it needs to, but if people are in if that's just the environment you're in, and people just accept that that's what we have to do, it's difficult to communicate how much more efficient they could be sometimes. So if anybody knows of a way of getting that message across, I'd be interested to talk to them. But it has been very, very, and it's had impact. It's driving our marketing. We are focused on finding people who have already for themselves identified that they've got a problem, rather than finding people, the much greater pool of people who might actually benefit quite a lot from this stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, interesting. I think there'd be a few people that'll associate with that as well, Paul. The trying to clearly communicate your value proposition when you're the expert and everybody else isn't. So yes.
Yeah.
Great. If you were sitting here now then having a conversation with your 18-year-old self, what would you tell yourself? What would you do differently with the knowledge you've got now?
The first thing to be aware of is that my 18-year-old self wouldn't take a blind bit of notice.
That's probably a fair point. Absolutely.
My 18-year-old self knew perfectly well everything there was to be known about everything, and wasn't taking any advice from old guys, which is probably the best advice I could give him, actually. I don't know. Thinking of the things I did wrong. I mean, there are a few things, but I suppose think more about careers and explore more options. The world's a big place, and this cliche city now has got a lot of very interesting, very different things to do. And when you're going, I went to a very academic school, went to King Edward's in Birmingham, and you sort of go on a particular path, and you perhaps don't see all of the different things that so yeah, got where I am, and I've enjoyed what I've been doing, but I suspect I wasn't, when I was coming out of university, wasn't really aware of quite how many things there are. And funnily enough, one of the things I've enjoyed doing in this job is going into so many different types of businesses. And we talk to engineering companies, manufacturing companies, consultancies, fire and security, people who check your firearm, and just the whole range of what businesses do. And some very interesting things, and some things that you just wouldn't have. I would just never have encountered. So maybe I could have, as an 18-year-old, have had thought a bit more about the opportunities that I had.
Yep, good stuff. What's the one piece of advice that you give to other business owners listening to this?
If you haven't got quotation software, get some. You won't regret it. I have to say that, don't I?
Of course you do.
Yeah. Am I allowed to say that?
You just did.
Okay. Well, that's my answer then. Yeah. Think about quotation software if you haven't. If you think about whether you're getting the best use of the people's times, whether your quotes are being raised as quickly as they could be.
Okay.
Not
Great.
quickly.
So on that note, then we talked prior to me pressing record about the offer that you could make out. Obviously, all of your contact details will be down there. So there's a way for people to get in touch with you. But if you'd like to explain what your offer is and the duration of, because bear in mind, this video will be sitting around for a long time. So, yeah, over to you.
Well, when you buy software from us, as you probably expect, there's a monthly charge, and we have what we call a standard implementation, which does almost everything that almost everybody would want. We usually charge 2K for that, sometimes a bit more, sometimes a bit less, depending on the size of the business. So between now and 31st of August, we'll waive that implementation charge, so you just pay the monthly subscription, which we're not going to put up to claw it back, by the way. So we'll waive the implementation charges to anybody who comes to us and says, I've sat all the way through this video, and by the end of it, I was still interested. So anybody who can say that, we will waive the implementation charges.
Right, okay. And presumably if somebody gets in touch with you and asks about that, you'll send them a quote.
We certainly will. And it'll come out very quickly.
Great stuff. All right, Paul. Well, thank you for your insights today. Great to hear about your business. Obviously, best of luck going forwards and staying number one globally, and continuing with that accolade. And I hope that you get some great take up on your very kind offer. So thank you for your time today.
Thanks very much for your time, Andy.
No worries.